Welcome to Life Beyond Clinical Practice, a podcast for health professionals who've outgrown their clinically defined identities and are ready to explore multidimensional ways to contribute, lead, and grow within or outside of healthcare. In the show, Dr. Diane unpacks why so many mid-career professionals feel restless and become curious about opportunities available to clinicians beyond the walls of traditional career paths. So, if you know you're meant for broader impact and more expansive expressions of your expertise, you're in the right place. Sit back, relax, and let's listen to Dr. Diane.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Life Beyond Clinical Practice podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have with me Dr. Samantha Nazareth, who's reached out to me a few weeks ago and wanted to share her story of leaving medicine, but not a traditional story. And when I read her email, I was so inspired and I knew that you would love to hear her journey. So Dr. Samantha Nazareth is a physician and an author of I Lived Anyway. I love the title. It's a memoir she wrote about her experience of stepping outside of the narrow center of full-time clinical practice without abandoning the training, the discipline and identity medicine gave her, which is the part I really loved. So Dr. Samantha, thank you so much for making the time to be on Life Beyond Clinical Practice podcast. Welcome. And we look forward to hearing your story today.
First of all, Dr. Diane, you have a beautiful voice. So I could hear you introduce me at any time, any day, any night.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Yeah, I guess a voice made for podcasting. Yeah. So you shared with me in that initial email, and I'm just going to read an excerpt from the email for the benefit of the listeners. And I quote, "My story is not a clean, I left medicine narrative. And it's not simply burnout. I had built the kind of accomplished New York City physician life many people spend years chasing. But after my mother's death, the structure that once made me feel safe began to feel too small." That's powerful right there. So break that down for the listeners and share more about how you reached that pivotal point in your career after achieving success on the outside by every measure.
And I'll preface this by saying that, and we always say this, once a doctor, always a doctor. I never left medicine. What changed was my relationship to it. So as the world became more global, mobile, virtual, so did my work, and it evolved into telehealth consulting, AI. And I would say the only thing I did leave was a windowless basement office with artificial lighting. That I did leave.
Yeah, that is something good to leave, I'm sure.
Yes, but you did mention a couple of things from the story, and I'll give you some dates. So we're in 2026, and I made this drastic change in 2023, right in January, which was the beginning of the new year. That's when everybody is facing these resolutions. What is the year going to look like? And people have asked me what catalyzed it, and that's why I mentioned my mother's death. But her death was actually 2 years before, 2021, and we were very, very close. It was just like anybody who's had a significant loss. It took me a year actually to really get back to it. But what her death really sparked in me was, what am I doing that I'm not living now how I should be? Because she ended up retiring, and then the moment she retired, she was in home hospice. So she actually never had the chance to enjoy. And I'm sure you've had parents or people who are always, they're looking forward to retirement, to live, to go on these vacations, to do these things because they work hard she put me through medical school, and then she retired and didn't really get to enjoy that. So I was faced with that from her, and then it made me question, all right, what do I want to do now?
What your life to look like? Yeah. How do you want your life to play out?
Yeah, exactly. So
Wow.
it was I had a triple exit. It wasn't just one thing. It was I grew up in Hoboken, New Jersey, and I ended up in New York City for a long time. I did training there. I did residency fellowship. I practiced there. I had a solo practice there. And when I left New York City, I really left home. So that was part one of the exit. Number two is the way I was practicing. Like I said, I didn't really leave medicine now, but it changed, it evolved. And the third thing was I left a 10-year relationship. So I did it
Wow. Yeah.
all at once.
Yeah. All big things, right? And most people, when faced with this sort of crossroads in their lives, they know that they can't continue in the same pattern rhythm. They don't want to live life that way. But when faced with these big life decisions and changes, it becomes so intimidating. It's like I'm giving up all of the security, everything I've worked 20 plus years or however long to build. So how did you navigate that reality and overcome it to say, well, I lived anyway, the title of your book?
I negotiated with my mind. That's how I ended up doing it.
Wow.
So the first negotiation, because like medicine trains you to override your needs.
Totally.
You have to work. You have to assess things. You can't really tap into what you desire. You have to override any of that. And the body was already starting to tell me, let's do something. And then finally, when the mind caught up to the body, it was a negotiation of, I will take 6 weeks sabbatical. That was the initial negotiation. So
right.
it wasn't this huge
It was safe
leap.
in a way, right?
It was safe.
Yeah.
It was another safe decision.
Yes.
I'll be honest about it. It was. That was my first negotiation, and that's what allowed me to do just that first step. Because at that point, it feels reversible. And I think that that makes it
and
okay.
that's totally justifiable because you invest, as you said, your mom invested in your education. You invested time, money, and energy into your education, residency, your solo practice. So just giving it all up like you're turning off a light switch it's not the reality that most people can handle, or even on a practical level that one should do. But sort of this negotiated transition. Okay, let me take this break. Let me, do some introspection, reassess. Seems like a safe, almost a launch pad or landing pad, whatever you want to call that. And then I think, early in my career when I pivoted, I also took a sabbatical because I just wanted to figure out what's next. And so, that's a great way to just separate yourself from your reality so that you can see and think more clearly. And then you start to see what some of the other options were. So maybe, So after that 6 weeks, what did that 6 weeks look like and what did it reveal to you?
Well, day 1, 6 weeks turned into 3 months.
Wow.
I was looking for a long-term place, and I was running into obstacles in finding a place. And I found a landlord that agreed to 3 months. Usually they agree to 6 months. And in my mind, I said, oh my God, I can't do 6 months. This is so different than the 6 weeks.
Right.
So from day 1, it actually became,
wow.
It was a 3-month. So it extended right on my first day of the trip.
Yeah. And how did you fold that 3 months? Like what did it look like in reality for you?
It was, this is the part I think that I felt like many people don't really speak about, is this in between. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
And actually my book, I changed the title. The original title, it was called Liminal, which is an in-between state. And that's what this time period felt like. It was, okay, there's this past here and this future that I still can't see.
It's still unknown. Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? And as sexy, tantalizing as a sabbatical, and I went to Puerto Rico, being on the beach in the
Right.
tropics during the winter it's actually quite heavy because I put a lot of pressure on myself to create some sort of solution at the end. So it was
Right.
when you go from routine and structure to nothing and having freedom, it actually was a lot harder to actually
Settling.
live it. Unsettling, yes, that's a perfect adjective for that.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. So, yeah, but kudos to you for actually making the decision to separate yourself, right? And then to figure out what comes next. What was that gonna look like for you? Now, somewhere in your email, you also mentioned that, when you reached a point where you started asking yourself that uncomfortable question of what else can I do? So you're in Puerto Rico on the beach, you've got this X amount of time to figure out what comes next. But then you said the real question became, who am I if medicine is no longer the only way I'm understood? And I love that. So maybe talk to the audience a little bit about how you process those questions in your mind.
I'll say there was an internal conversation and a conversation that I had because I had to meet people from like just brand new. So I was in
Right.
conversations with strangers quite often as I was staying those months there. And outwardly, it was easy just to say I'm a doctor or I'm a gastroenterologist because it really puts you in people's mind in a box that they understand.
Totally. Yep. Yep.
And it comes with benefits, really. When you
Exactly.
say you're a doctor, people look at you differently. They do.
100%.
Always. And I use that as my comfort. That's what I used. Even when I was in this in-between phase, I was still saying it so I could make sense to other people. But internally, I didn't want to seem like, oh, well, I'm on a sabbatical. And I didn't want to have this appearance of being not serious. So my internal conversation was not what I was telling other people.
Projecting to the world. Wow, this is some real deep stuff. Sam, oh gosh, I could unpack this for hours, just by your response, because the identity we attach ourselves to, that we believe the world respects, understands, and, as you say, puts us in a neat, clean box. The moment you almost make a decision that that's not quite how I want to live the rest of my life, that unsettling, as you say, in between, and then not knowing how to communicate who am I? What do I tell people that I do? And that's really a lot of what I spoke about on Life Beyond Clinical Practice in the earlier years. It's like many people who want to leave clinical practice, that is the first barrier they face is who am I if I'm not a fill in the blank, whatever your clinical training discipline is. And so, yeah, how did you move past that, using your title, your prestigious background as you say, your comfort, your security blanket? People understand me. They respect me because of this, but also acknowledging internally that there's a need to release that and create something new, in a sense, for lack of a better way of putting it.
It was time. And because the further I kept traveling, essentially. I didn't, it wasn't a sabbatical. I kept going. And the further and further I was away from that life that I left, it became so different that I became a different person, that even envisioning going back to that was just, it was almost like I just hit a second life, and it just didn't make sense. That identity almost was shed already because of time and experiences. A lot of experiences. Organically. I mean, it was not easy because, again, I would say, because this was 2023, so that was my first year of travel, there was this negotiation of I could always go back. Things can be reversed. And that negotiation even continued in year 2. And then at a certain point, when I was in a remote island in French Polynesia with 50 people on an island. I realized, scuba diving with sharks and playing with dolphins while diving my life had become so completely different that I realized, okay, even if my mind is telling me one thing, I'm clearly living something else.
Different reality. I love that. And I think it leads nicely into the next sort of question that we had was you touched on themes of professional identity, the prestige trap, and how clinicians can build a wider life without feeling like they've wasted their training. And I think what you've just described talks to that organic process of redefining, not shedding your professional identity, but really redefining your professional identity and I guess shedding the prestige trap, because that's initially what you held on to as your safety blanket, right?
Yeah, now it's interesting what titles I use now because I try not to say I'm a doctor for as long as I can, but eventually somehow it comes out. Yeah, it comes out. But I'm an author and a doctor, not, it's like, it depends where you put the titles now, but it's not something that I lead with that like I used to.
Right. And yeah, that's interesting to see how that shifts even in your mind. What you lead with is no longer what you were trained and I guess schooled in life to believe is the thing that should lead. It's, your biggest titles, your biggest accomplishments. And I think society has just created that infrastructure for us to want to lead with those things. But I love that a different life experience and exposure to living life a different way slowly unraveled that for you and helped you to see value beyond those external metrics. I've written quite a bit about, the success metrics and what we believe are accomplishments as professionals. But oftentimes then we may reach a point when that becomes empty, right? We want something more for our lives. And I think I see a lot of that in your story, which is why I was so excited to share it with the audience. So is there anything specific from your book? We touched on the book, I Left Anyway, that you'd love to share with us today. What's that one message you hope readers will take away from I Left Anyway and your story that, someone who like you is questioning or whatever, what's that central message you'd love to share with the audience?
I want to share that this middle is messy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I find that there's always these clean pivot stories, just like clean before and after. But the middle is lonely. I was full of doubt. I wanted to go back many times and just like a light switch, turn back that life on again. I didn't always feel brave. Sometimes it felt like I'm an adrenaline junkie. So I love amusement parks, and growing up, we used to go to Six Flags every year, and they had this free fall ride.
My goodness.
Yeah. But that's what it felt like. It's like, okay, you take the leap, you take that first step, but the middle part actually feels like the free fall. It's not the actual step of like going on the plane and leaving. It's everything in between that feels like free fall, because your life, just like your guts are coming out of your mouth when you're free falling. That's what it feels like. Like your whole life is just ripping and shedding.
Sure.
It's shedding off. So I think that if anybody is in that space where they're thinking about it, or they've already made that step, that first step of the life that you left and another life that hasn't been introduced yet, just because it doesn't look like work is being done, actually is a very critical time.
Wow.
Very critical.
That's powerful. That is powerful. And so where are you at? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and where can people find your book if they're interested in reading more about your story?
It's on Amazon, paperback and Kindle. And Yeah, it's available there. And I write on Substack with my name, Samantha Nazareth, more short form.
Okay.
It gives me another outlet to do creative things. I always write nonfiction. Maybe that will change in the future, but I tend to write about my travel stories on Substack.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that should be
Instagram.
interesting to do. Okay. I'll look you
Instagram,
up.
yeah. Yeah, I'm mainly on stories to keep in touch with people because I'm always
Right.
bouncing around. So just to keep in
Yeah.
touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say is the biggest takeaway as we bring this interview to a close, Dr. Sam? What is
Oh,
personally, do you feel you've gained, and how's your life? I don't want to use the term richer, but yeah. Yeah, your life now, you described sort of leaving and the fear and the doubt and everything you left behind, and redefined life on a new terms now as an author. Physician comes after, Yeah, internally, I think that's
mm.
my question. How do you feel now, and what's your perspective on life and careers, and just the sort of one last takeaway for the
Yes.
listeners?
I think what's guided me through these decisions has been my curiosity, but it's also because of a strong interest to be a student again, to be a beginner again.
Love that. Love that.
That
Love that.
I find, and perhaps it's specific to me, and that's what helped guide me a little bit, was more of this, I want to be a beginner in this and learn this, and it's taken me all over the world and learning different skills, and I think that has navigated my journey after that big pivot.
Love it, because just yesterday on my morning walk, I always get these brain waves, and I had to cut my walk short because I'm like, I need to go and write this down. I actually need to carry my phone with me when I'm walking so I can take notes. But yeah, one of the things is that curiosity, right? And then being able to reflect and always learning. I'm learning every day at this point in my career, but I'm just always curious. I want to know, how does this affect? How's AI affecting health professions education? That's always been, an interest of mine. Or how's it affecting the work I do now? You've got the podcast. How can I integrate new tools? And I think that just those principles of always being curious and wanting to learn and not feeling you've arrived, because especially in clinical professions, we train for competence. Now, many people reach that point of competence and then they're like, what's next? And I think always being curious and open to learning just opens up so many more avenues for you to express who you are as a person and as a professional. So thank you for those nuggets. It's been absolutely inspiring. I love interviewing guests like yourself, because just hearing your story just underscores the work that I do on Life Beyond Clinical Practice, and helping people see that you don't have to be trapped in a model that once worked for you, if you want something different for your future. And I hope that's the key takeaway for our listeners today. So thank you so much for your time. I know the time zones, always make these interviews sometimes challenging because you're in a different corner of the world, but looking forward to sharing your story on the podcast soon, Dr. Sam, and wishing you all the best for the book and the books to come. I'll definitely be following you on social media, and love to hear more about your travel writings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to Life Beyond Clinical Practice. If today's conversation resonated with you and helped you to see what's possible beyond your current role, then your career identity expansion has already begun. You can follow Dr. Diane on LinkedIn and Instagram at Dr. Diana Van Staden, subscribe to the Life Beyond Clinical Practice YouTube channel, or follow its social media pages for more content that helps you get clear on your next chapter. And if you're ready to explore more ways your expertise can be shared, then join the Career Identity Expansion Lab waitlist for an opportunity to design your next chapter together with Dr. Diane. Until next time, remember, your career doesn't have to stay confined to your professional title, because there are broader ways to contribute, create, lead, and grow. And this podcast exists to help you discover just that.